All right, let's take it from the top.
From the top at the Focus Practice Management Studios, here today with Tim Ball. Welcome from Bonadio. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here.
Well, why don't we start out with getting a little bit of information out of you? I mean, the idea of what you do, I'd really like to hear about fraud investigations, and I know that you were having some fun conversations before this on that concept, but also just your background and how you got into this and what a consultant is.
Yeah, all very good questions.
Yeah, I'll let you take it from here.
So I started my career at Bonadio and I got a degree in accounting from Alfred University. So I started in a public accounting firm, picked Bonadio. Thank God, what a great firm! And I've been there my whole career, almost 20 years now. So I started out as an auditor, which many folks do. And 4 or 5 years in, I got an opportunity to move over into more of our forensic accounting division, which was pretty small at the time, but was working on some Medicaid fraud investigations and other types of matters like that. The firm was still fairly small back then. Tom Bonadio had been growing it for many, many years, since before I arrived, but we were less than 200 people at the time. And when we moved in and we started growing, we really decided to try to centralize our forensic accounting practice, so that all of our offices, as we began to acquire practices, would handle forensic accounting matters and investigations similarly across the firm. Because we had a lot of great partners that had certified fraud examiner license, but they would do investigations kind of their own way.
Who licenses things like that?
I think it's the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners.
Wow.
I've never heard of that.
So that's my license as a CFE.
That's what that. Okay.
Yeah. So
I've seen those letters.
It's fancy 3 letters that are after my name. And so from there, we continued to grow that forensic accounting practice. And then around 5 years ago, as the firm continued to grow, we decided it was a good move to start to centralize all of our advisory and consulting practices into one centralized service line in the firm. Many firms our size and in the top 50 kind of do that. And so we decided to do that as well. And so our forensic practice came over, our cybersecurity and IT consulting practice came over, our outsourced accounting practice came over, and all of our other sort of specialized services like our healthcare consulting group, our construction and real estate consulting group, all centralized into one service line. And around 4 years ago, I was asked to start leading that service line. And as of today, we're up over 200 professionals in the Bonadio Group are advisory and consulting specialists in one of those disciplines. And so we have an awesome group of professionals. And I still practice a little.
Right.
Yeah. And when I practice, I'm still doing pretty large white collar and government investigation work.
I'm trying to find out when Union plays Alfred so that I can give you a call in football.
My father graduated from Union.
I like your dad.
Yeah.
I like your dad. But I know that we've played. I think you're on the schedule this year.
Probably.
I was trying to double check. I definitely want to dive in a little bit more. I don't know that most people know or understand what a forensic accounting even is, or when you need one, or who should be even in the market to find out. Could you explain a little bit more about what is a forensic accountant?
Yeah, it's easy. It's easier to explain it kind of in the sort of areas that we help serve. So one would be white collar crime. So you hear about it on the news all the time. You hear the term.
So if I want to commit it,
if you're committed white collar
or
crime,
I want to commit it, I come to you to find out how.
No, yeah, well, we could tell you probably how to get away with it, but that's a whole nother. we don't need to talk about that. So white collar criminal is typically an employee in an organization who finds a way to steal from the organization or steal from customers or other things through their employment with the organization. That's typically a very easy, broad sort of description of white collar crime.
And that comes up more than I think most people would guess.
You would. I mean, there's statistics out there that I couldn't talk about without looking at them, but it's a very high rate of businesses at some point in their business life will experience a fraud of some sort from an employee. And so again, I mean, it's busy enough that in most of our offices, we have full-time people that are doing investigations of white collar crime within our own client base and then within clients that, come to us for our specialty. So that's really one side of it. Another side would be sort of on the what we call the government fraud, which is an organization, maybe a healthcare organization or a long-term care organization that can bill Medicaid and Medicare, or receives a lot of their revenue, if you will, from government funds, and finds a way to manipulate or incorrectly submit claims to the government.
Incorrectly.
Yeah. And again, yeah.
To be fair, that's easier than one would think as well.
Yes.
I mean, to
Okay,
defend the
that's true.
healthcare providers
That's
out
true.
there, it's a complicated endeavor.
That's true.
And so we work a lot with those organizations. Again, whether the crime is purposeful or sometimes an accident, it's still considered something that has to be investigated. And then the third is anything on the individual level. So on the individual level, you might think about forensic accounting related to a matrimonial dispute or a divorce in which, one of the spouses believes the other is hiding assets. You also might think about two partners in a partnership. Like just think of a roofing company where two
Right.
brothers work together and they get in a dispute about shared profits and who owes who. And then also elder fraud. We specialize as a firm in elder fraud. And we have some wonderful practitioners that really work almost 100% of their time in that. And that's really, if as an example, grandma's in the nursing home but has a bank account, has a power of attorney that's one of the sons, and the son, starts to siphon money out of that account inappropriately in their role as the power of attorney. We can help the government, which is typically, an adult protective service unit in a county or the police. We work with the state police in investigating elder fraud and helping quantify the damages.
Yeah, I mean, who reaches out to you? How does somebody even contemplate if you own a business, when you go, oh my gosh, I need to go get a forensic account?
Yeah, it comes in a couple ways. So clients of our firm, if they mention to their auditors, like, oh my God, we're experiencing, a fraud or we think something's wrong, clearly that comes right to our forensic accounting division at the Bonadio Group. That keeps us pretty busy because,
Internal referrals.
A firm our size, we're a $200 million plus firm. I mean, we have a lot of clients. And so we have a lot of clients that can experience issues and we can help shepherd them through that investigation. We also work with a lot of law firms. So, once we get a client who experiences a fraud and they have an attorney that they've worked with and that we work with that attorney, because typically we do these investigations under the privilege. And so we get to know that attorney. That attorney now knows that we're good at what we do. And so when they have other clients that experience fraud, they'll bring us in as the forensic accountant. We work hand in hand with lawyers to do the investigation. So we might conduct forensic interviews and other things with the lawyer in the room. And then we pour through boxes of data and documents and other things back at our offices, but we keep the attorneys informed of sort of the investigation, and they help us on the legal side and we help them on the financial data and quantification side.
I think that's where you and we were trying to figure out where we've crossed paths, and I think you were heading up a group that helped me with a matter years ago, though. It was several years ago. That's how we know each other.
Now I remember, yes.
So, somebody else, sort of did the work, but you were in on some of those meetings.
Yes, I'm sure.
So we're 6-minute increments. We're, we talk about lawyers, how they bill their time, and we try to get feedback from other professionals that we work with. What don't you like about working with lawyers? What do you appreciate?
It's okay.
What lawyers
it's okay
do?
to tell us the
I
truth.
know, you guys did not prepare me that this was going to be one of the questions.
We like
yeah.
But what do you appreciate? Like when a lawyer does a particular thing, you're like, oh, I like that. I want to work with that person more.
So I have had the pleasure over the years of working with some fantastic lawyers in investigations. And what I've really enjoyed, I can think of a few in particular, is they really bring the forensic accounting support right into everything. They don't keep us out of some of the conversations and sort of keep us, in a sense, blind to what's going on in the case and say, hey, just please look at this data and tell us what the numbers are. They kind of allow us to be part of the case. And in a lot of the investigations I've worked on, we always say I'm sort of a lawyer in disguise, or I'm acting like one part of
you stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Part of the legal team, yeah. So that's a lot of fun. I'd say what I don't like is when the attorneys don't understand what a forensic accountant can bring to the table. We need to know everything that's going on with the case, because if we're going to uncover potential fraud, understand what controls may have been lacking, or we have to understand who all is involved all the fastest. You can't keep us in the dark on a portion of the case. We will not be as effective. And so I think some attorneys that I've worked with who just try to, in a sense, silo us in the investigation, it doesn't really help us deliver the results that they're hoping for.
Now, do you have any thoughts? I mean, I have a guess as to why some lawyers might do this, but do you have any thoughts or have ever heard from them? Because I think I know, which I don't agree with them. I think there is a lesson to be learned about, you mentioned the word privilege.
Yeah. I think that's some of it. I think it's some of the protection of the confidentiality of different aspects of the case that they feel that they have to uphold. I think that it's also could be client fees. Sometimes
That was my thought is
Yeah.
it's an expensive endeavor oftentimes, doing a forensic accounting, but it's necessary and it's not even worth doing at all. As you said, if you're not able to do your job effectively, then, trying to pinch pennies here and there by
Yes.
just releasing some information, well, why even bother at all? You should be in for it completely or not do it. So
you could explain that at the basic level of just interviews. So if the attorneys are going to go and conduct baseline interviews of an organization and interview 10 people, and the client says, well, I only like to please do it with like one attorney, so I'm not paying for 2 or 3 professionals in the room while interviews are conducted. So you might shut us out of that because we're an expensive hourly rate as well. That might make sense to the client but it doesn't make sense because we're trained to do forensic interviews as well. I mean, we ask a lot of questions that the attorneys may not be thinking of in the room when you start thinking about system controls and where data exists and who has access to things. And again, general understanding of the financial operations of the organization. So we offer a lot in a forensic interview that it can be easy to think, well, I don't want 2 or 3 expensive professionals in the room all at once. And that's one of the areas where we would get shut out. So yeah, expense.
yeah.
Who often hires you? I mean, when you talk about lawyers and privilege, I don't know that a lot of clients realize if they use us and we then, or any lawyer, not just us, but lawyers can then still protect that information through attorney-client privilege. Do you find that it's the clients or the lawyers who are more often hiring you to get that privilege?
So very often a client comes to us not understanding exactly what their needs are, thinking, hey, I have to do an investigation. I need forensic accountants to help us quantify. And probably 95% of the time we say, yep, we're happy to help you, but you need to get a good lawyer and they need to hire us. And so we really, in a sense, I spend a ton of time in the beginning of an investigation, specifically with boards of nonprofits and healthcare organizations, educating them on what this is going to look and feel like. And then basically recommending or referring them to a few different investigative lawyers that I've worked with over the years that I think would be a good fit for their investigation. Then that attorney hopefully turns around and hires us to assist. But at least we've thrown our hat in the ring. But the other thing that's fun about being a CPA firm, fun with quotes around it, is we have to protect ourselves against risk just as much as any other professional services organization. Right. And a lot of times conducting an investigation without privilege established and without the assistance of an attorney puts us at risk for our findings and the ability of whoever we might be ruling or quantifying against to come after us. And so, we have to make sure that the engagement is set up in a way that protects our work, privileges our work, protects the client, and gets them good legal advice along the way.
So now in your role these days, you're doing a lot of management and advising. What percentage breakdown do you have and how often are you still working with individual clients?
So me personally, or just our practice in general?
You personally, and then your practice.
So me personally, as I've continued to take on more leadership and sort of oversight roles in the firm, I practice less. I would say that it's more, a quarter of my time than it used to be, more 75% of my time. I still have a lot of fun doing investigations, and so I when we get complex opportunities, I still like to take them on and work with my forensic accounting team. For us, if you can imagine running a professional services firm, you can't guarantee that your clients are going to experience fraud. So the lumpiness of forensic investigations is very up and down.
Is there a cyclical nature to fraud?
There really isn't. Although I can tell you the months for the last 15 years, I can always tell you the months that were the busiest, and it's January, February, because it's when people start to close their year, and they start to think about paying taxes, and they start to talk to their accountants. So January, February is when the phone starts to ring, always, every year. For forensic investigations. But what I was going to go with on there, all of my forensic accountants, in a sense, they're moonlighters. They want they're forensic accountants. They're very good at that, but they have to get another specialty because we can't control how often fraud comes into the firm, and we have some months where we're completely dry. We just don't have any active investigations, and so our investigators, our forensic accountants, specialize in all sorts of other areas: healthcare cost reports, loan reviews for banks, a lot of internal audit activities, a lot of controls reviews. So we talk about investigating fraud, and then we talk about helping organizations prevent against fraud. Right. And so they spend a lot of their time kind of taking the skills that they learned from what they've seen happen that's the worst to helping organizations protect themselves. So it's lumpy. But again, when it rains, it pours. It seems like in that January, February timeframe, and then all the way through May, we've got a lot of very active investigations.
Our practices can be lumpy. I never thought of it in that way.
Yeah.
I have a lot of cycles, but there's a pattern to the madness. So enough years, it just drives your hair gray.
Or you lose it all.
Or you lose it all.
Yes, yes.
I guess the next question is, for a business owner, I mean, how do they make contact if they're not part of Bonadio, if they're not using your services right now? What's your tip that you would give to a business owner, what to look for if they're going to need these types of services?
So I'll answer that question, and I'll give the best tip of the day. So,
Ooh,
yes,
I like
the tip,
it.
The tip of the day. You're gonna love it. It's the thing I preach about all the time. But I'm gonna hold off just to get everyone excited. So if they were ever to if a business feels that they've potentially experienced fraud, or they're concerned about, like, hey, we're losing money and I don't know why, is money going somewhere it shouldn't, they can always call us. Any contact in the firm will understand if they're asking those questions, to get them over to our forensic division, one of our partners that's over there, which could include me. They can also just look up on our website. We have an awesome website that kind of shows what all of our services are, and they can reach us in that way. Typically, too, they can talk if they have counsel that they work with often and they're concerned. They can talk with them, and that'll make its way to either us or some of the other good forensic accounting practices in one of the cities that they're in. Which we have there's a lot of wonderful, I'll call them competitors, but there's some really awesome forensic accountant practices and groups in a lot of the cities that our offices are in. My tip of the day is, if you're worried at all about fraud in your organization, the first question you should ask yourself is, do I have a hotline? That's really the most important thing you can do. Around 45% plus frauds are discovered through a tip from inside the organization, typically. And so what we do, when I train a lot on what I'll call fraud prevention for organizations, especially in healthcare, human services, those areas, is do you have a mechanism in which, if an employee sees something weird in the organization, or sees someone acting odd or doing weird things, do they have a way that they can, either submit an anonymous tip or call a hotline and talk to a compliance officer and say, hey, like, I saw some, I was out to lunch with, Betty, the bookkeeper, and I saw that she had some, checks, blank checks from the organization sitting in her purse. I thought that was really weird. So if 45% of frauds are caught through the tip, and that's by far the highest percentage of the way that fraud's discovered, it's one of the easiest things to implement as a hotline. Why wouldn't you do it?
Right.
It's funny, like I tell the story all the time. A gas station is much more likely to go and spend tens of thousands of dollars on cameras and security and all that other stuff when they've only got $1,000 in the till at any given time that someone could rob. But they're much less likely to pay $5,000 a year to have an accountant kind of double check the books of their bookkeeper, who could easily steal hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
With without even thinking about it and no one noticing. So it's funny the difference in the two.
What about lawyers? I mean, I think, have a tendency to maybe want to take on more than we should. How often are you seeing that the lawyers start an investigation, they bring it in too late, or what's the tip for a lawyer on when to contact you guys?
So
that smile.
One of the things that I do love about lawyers is, most often they're not the numbers people.
No.
It is funny how often I hear the lawyers say, but I don't, I'm not the numbers person. I know a lot about the law, I know a lot about the investigation, but I need help with the numbers. And so it is rare that we have an attorney who takes an investigation too far before getting a forensic accountant involved. I would say on the tax side, there's a lot of really good tax attorneys that specialize heavily in tax, and they're much better at kind of understanding, getting the base of what the issue is that they're dealing with, like if it's an issue with the IRS or something, and then bringing us in at a point which makes sense. But sometimes that can be a little late, because they don't know what they're dealing with yet, and they don't understand how much they're going to have to quantify, or the argument that they might be making to the IRS, and whether that really results in having to reperform a tax year or multiple tax years. But I would say, I work with lawyers who they definitely know a lot, and they also think that they know a lot. But when it comes to numbers, I don't see many of them overstepping there. Luckily.
No.
I don't overstep with numbers.
No, Beth doesn't like the numbers.
No.
So I think the other big thing is, we did talk about, what is a cost involved? What should somebody expect in this realm?
So I'll tell you, I'll work my way backwards. So in matrimonial and individual issues where a spouse feels that they're wronged by their assets are being hidden, they might be working with a divorce attorney who might say, hey, you need a forensic accountant. We get a lot of those calls, and when they talk to a firm like ours, and the first thing I do is talk about the fees of using a high level forensic accountant, and it typically sorts them out. It's not a good fit for them.
Do you guys bill to the 10th of the hour? Do you have flat rates? How do you structure that?
We bill hourly, similar to attorneys, and it depends on the type of engagement. But yeah, typically same thing. We bill to the 10th, and we have hourly rates. They are high because again, our specialty is mostly in the bigger investigations, the white collar crime. So we typically, and again, in those matrimonials, if we're too expensive, we'll suggest a smaller accountant or help. We might even help the spouse. I spend a lot of time just helping the spouse themselves say, hey, look here, look at these areas. You could probably figure some of this out yourself. So that's on the smaller stuff. Fees for larger, it is very, very, very hard to estimate, as you guys would understand as well. It's hard to estimate what you're going to find.
You don't know how deep the rabbit hole is. Yeah.
And so we try to, for clients who may be very cost conscious in an investigative setting, and they're not at they're not at risk. There are situations in which they have no choice. They have to do it. Like if there's federal money involved, they have to do a full investigation. They have no choice, and we'll try to be as cost conscious as we can, but their rocks can't be unturned.
Right.
In other situations where they want us to poke around a little bit, they're not exactly sure what they're dealing with. We'll take a phased approach. So we may say, hey, phase 1, we'll talk to these 4 people. We'll look at these 3 accounts for these 2 months. We'll charge an hourly rate, but we'll estimate the fees will be this or less. And then at the end of that phase, we'll talk to you. We'll talk about what we discovered, and you can decide whether you want to expand the investigation or not. The other thing that we do is we say, if we do discover fraud, we'll stop immediately and sort of regroup on what the plan is going forward. Because that, again, sometimes you find fraud in an organization and they say, cool, thanks for letting us know. We just like to terminate that employee and move on with our lives. We don't even really want to quantify it. We don't want to go after them criminally. We don't want to file an insurance claim. And so it would be unnecessary for us to figure out exactly how much the damages are. So try to work with clients respectfully of like what their end game may be, and control fees from there.
Well, we want to be respectful of everybody's time and make sure that we all get back to billing hourly in 6-minute increments if we like to. But at the same time, one of my last questions, I guess, is going to be, what's on a team? I mean, when we do projects, and I think clients are sometimes surprised by that. They're like, well, I hired Beth, and who's this person? But at the same time, there are tasks that should be, when you're billing hourly, assigned to others. How many people work on a project like this? What are
the different roles in a typical team?
Awesome question. So some of it, I know you guys are really good at this. It can depend. It can depend, quite frankly, on what it is that we're investigating. So if it's a large data set that they want us to utilize to, like, again, if we're reviewing payroll data through the last 5 years and trying to look for anomalies, we would have a team where we'd have a partner like myself who would sort of oversee the investigation and be prepared in a sense to own the findings should it make its way to a trial or deposition or something like that. We may have like a senior investigator who's extremely experienced in sort of what we need to focus on and other things. And then we use analysts. So we use younger forensic accountants with 3 to 5 years experience that are typically, again, cheaper hourly rate for the clients to pour through a lot of the data. We might bring in, again, some IT specialists if we're concerned about, how data is moving through a system. We might bring in compliance experts if we're worried about, if we're looking at a specific bill or claim for a medical standpoint, what some of the legal issues may be. We also use systems we use tools a lot too.
Do you use AI as part of the workflow?
So I actually just doing a lot of research right now on some different tools that incorporate AI into investigation tools. I would say it's still, in my mind, it's still a new frontier that I'm not necessarily all the way. I don't have a lot of complete faith in yet to help us, review large areas of data. But I think it's coming quickly.
Yes.
And I'm excited because I do think it will cut down on some of the time that we may take at a professional hourly rate of pouring through years and years of activity. But we also use a lot of data analytics tools and data extraction tools where, again, if we have an organization that has 5 million transactions in a month, we can basically run a data analytics over there to look for doubles, anomalous activity. We can look for transactions that happened, after 8 o'clock at night and before 2 a.m. in the morning. We can look for transactions on Sundays. We can do a lot of kind of get it all uploaded and then do searches in there that help us sort of narrow down into different types of disbursements that might be questionable.
I mean, do you find that business owners or people who've engaged with you, do they ever get surprised that I guess there's somebody else on a file or working on a matter? I mean, we get that a lot. I guess that's
Right.
So you're saying from a professional standpoint of like we're using a team, right?
Right, that there's a team behind you. Somebody shows up, they're like, I like Tim. Tim's a good guy.
Yeah.
He went to Alfred.
I try to make it very clear, as I'm sure you do too, at the beginning of an investigation, that these are the folks that we're going to try to use to work this, and we talk to the client pretty transparently about trying to leverage work down when we can,
Right.
To give them a better rate for the work that needs to be done. But we make no promises or commitments because, again, depending on, we don't know what we're uncovering, right? We don't know what's going to happen when we kick the bee's nest. We don't know what's going to come out.
Right.
So depending on the complexity of the stuff that we're reviewing, it depends on who we're going to use. Being part of a large firm means that I have a lot of resources available to me.
Right.
So it's not this thing where it's like, well, Ben's not available, so we had to use Jimmy and he's a senior. I got 40 analysts ready to go at any time. So
I think we find it's more the notion is, I don't want you to use anybody. I want you to do it all.
Yeah.
But that is not a very reasonable expectation. And then what really happens is
And it's not efficient.
you probably don't like the bill.
yeah.
You can pay me to tippy type all day, but that's a pretty expensive undertaking.
100%, right? Yeah, if you want me to do it all, happy to. All right,
Right.
But my rate will be.
And here's your bill.
My rate reflects, the
Right.
value that I bring, and I think that is forensic. If I was to say the most challenging part about forensic accounting is scoping and trying to work with a client on what it's going to take to do the investigation. No client, even in the nonprofit and government world, just wants to say, unlimited funds, figure it out.
Right.
They want an idea of what it's going to cost.
It's tax dollars there.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, Tim, I appreciate your time greatly. We want to make sure that we're being conscious and letting you get back to billing, and
Right.
we're all double billing right now. So
Please like, share, subscribe, and
tell your enemies, tell your friends.
tell them all.
Thank you very much.
You got it. It's great to see you
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Yeah.
Great
Thanks,
to see
Tim.
you.